The stars shimmered like scattered glass across the void, cold and impassive, as a command carrier Vigilanturnum hung in low orbit above Earth. To the Galactic Coalition, this planet was little more than a tactical inconvenience, another primitive rock resisting the inevitable order of the stars. But unlike other worlds, Earth had proven stubborn. Reports had filtered in over the past cycle. Strike teams eliminated without warning, armored patrols vanishing without distress calls, and elite drop pods torn apart before ever establishing footholds. The enemy wasn't launching mass offensives. They were waiting, watching, killing from shadows. General Karsak Relon paced the observation deck, talons clicking softly on the alloy floor. His crest feathers were rigid with frustration. You say this world has no orbital defense, yet we've lost 3 recon wings in 2 days. The analyst beside him, a wiry being with compound eyes and too many arms, flicked through battle reports. Their electromagnetic profile is disruptive, crude yet effective. Analog equipment, subsonic projectiles, entirely outside our predictive models. Karsak snarled low in his throat. Enough excuses. Deploy the eye. Within the sanctum of the elite barracks, Vorthkshar opened his artificial eye. The room was dark, but to him, it blazed with overlays and readouts. He rose without sound. 2 meters tall reptilian, scarred from 17 campaigns, Vorth was a coalition's final whisper. The sniper who had ended civil wars with a single pull of the trigger. His weapon, the Mzalik 42, was no mere rifle but a Neuralink precision instrument capable of tracking a heartbeat across half a continent. But what truly made Vorth lethal was his patience. Where others stormed, he waited. Where others fired, he watched. He had no name among humans. Soon, they would give him one. His mission was direct. Eliminate the source of human sniper resistance in Sector 8, an area spanning the Appalachian Highlands, where terrain favored concealment and guerrilla tactics. Coalition scouts had gone dark there. Drones failed to map the region. Electromagnetic anomalies scrambled sensors. High Command suspected resistance strongholds, but lacked precision. Perfect. Hours later, the drop pod hissed open amid a canopy of dying autumn leaves. Earth's air was thick, damp, laden with organic scent, mud, decay, something wild. Vorth crouched low, eyes scanning. No welcome fire. No visible structures. Just endless ridgelines and trees clawing at the overcast sky. He blinked, toggling through vision modes. Thermal, infrared, motion prediction. Nothing. He moved like liquid shadow through the brush, each footfall calculated. Leaves didn't crunch beneath his steps. He paused to mark positions, triangulate angles. A good sniper measured not just where the shot would land, but where the enemy might think he was shooting from. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Wildlife avoided war zone, but this felt observed. Vorth's first kill came 40 minutes after insertion. A human scout, high in a pine tree, scanning with binoculars. Poor camouflage. Vorth fired once. The body tumbled silently to the forest floor. But he didn't linger. One shot meant exposure. He moved again, triangulating a vantage point on a rock outcrop that overlooked the valley below. From there, he could see the remnants of a skirmish, burned-out coalition crawlers, charred armor plating. No bodies. Strange. The kill zone was precise, deliberate, not an ambush. A message. He set up his blind, weaving native branches into a synthetic mesh that masked his heat and profile. Minutes passed, then hours. The forest breathed in rhythms. Wind swayed canopy. He watched, waited, calculated. Still nothing. Even Earth's sun, dull and orange through cloud, slipped lower, casting shadows that stretched like claws. Then, at 1700 local time, he caught the glint. A flash, barely perceptible, half a kilometer northeast. Could be sun off glass, or optics. He snapped his rifle to position, magnifying tenfold. Nothing but a rock. Still, he fired a suppression round, its impact cracking the stone apart. For a moment, dust hung in the air. No movement. He marked the site, shifted angle, and crawled 20 meters west to a second overlook. A minute passed, then another, and then, behind him, Just 3 meters left of his original position. A soft thump. Vorth spun. Nothing. Just a leaf disturbed. His scope swept the trees. No heat. No movement. Yet the unease remained, curling under his armor like frost. He tapped his comms. Sector 8 deployed. No resistance. Continuing overwatch. A pause. Then static. No response. He tried again. Command, repeat. This is Vorthshar. Comms integrity failing. Signal boost required. Still silence. He didn't panic. Not yet. He'd been in black zones before. But the timing was convenient. The glint returned. Same place. Identical angle. Vorth locked on. Scan again. Still a rock. But this time, there was a second glint. Fainter, to the right. He traced it. And then it clicked. Mirrors. He ducked instinctively, rolling behind a fallen log. A heartbeat later, the tree behind him exploded in a burst of bark and splinters. A kinetic round, unsilenced high caliber, had missed him by less than 2 centimeters. A second shot came, this one from the opposite ridge. Ambush! He scrambled into the ravine, diving through underbrush as shots echoed in a staggered rhythm. Not automatic fire. Deliberate. Coordinated. He activated his shield pulse, but it flickered. Yem interference again. His tech, once his advantage, was failing him here. He crawled beneath a fallen trunk, pressed flat to the soil, breath shallow. His neural eye recorded everything, shot angles, muzzle flash, potential trajectories. There were at least 2 shooters. Maybe more. And they weren't missing because they couldn't hit him. They were missing on purpose. Hurting him. He narrowed his eye and whispered himself in his native tongue, a phrase drilled into him during childhood on the storm plains of Zyros. When you see no path, you're already in one. A branch cracked behind him. He froze. He turned slowly. Nothing. And yet the certainty returned, coiling like ice in his gut. They knew he was here. Not just knew, anticipated. Like hunters who'd already baited the trap and were simply waiting for their quarry to tire. Vorth exhaled. The forest gave no answer, just a low hiss of wind through leaves, and the knowledge that somewhere out there, invisible in the brush, Earth snipers were watching him, and smiling. The wind rolled softly over the ridgeline, bending grass and stirring brittle leaves without sound. Beneath a thicket of gnarled branches, half buried in mud and moss, Sergeant Mason lay still enough to be mistaken for part of the earth itself. His cheek rested against the stock of his rifle, breath slow and even. A spider crawled across his gloved hand. He didn't flinch. Movement got you killed. Through the thin film of his scope, he watched the alien. The bastard moved well. Quiet, deliberate, like someone who had hunted before. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a rifle that looked like it cost more than Mason's entire house once did. Mason had seen plenty of high-tech soldiers try their luck in these hills. Exosuits, hover drones, laser sights, all dead men walking. Fancy didn't mean smart, and it didn't mean safe. But this one was different. The alien had already dodged 2 trap shots and avoided every decoy planted along the western slope. He was analyzing, adjusting, learning. Mason hated when they learned. His radio buzzed softly in his ear. Visual. He clicked his tongue twice, affirmative. Another voice. You want the shot? He hesitated. The alien was moving again, shifting along the edge of a granite outcrop. Perfect angle for a headshot, but Mason didn't fire. Negative, he whispered, barely audible. Too early. Let him dig his own grave. Silence followed. The team trusted him. In this war, patience was the best weapon they had. The Coalition sent machines, algorithms, and shock troops. Earth sent ghosts. 3 clicks came through the comms. A warning. Motion detected to the north. Mason adjusted his scope, swept the tree line. No movement, no shimmer, no glint of metal. Just trees, old and gnarled like something from forgotten age. And somewhere beyond them, death waited for someone. The alien paused, tilted its head slightly, as if listening to the forest itself. Mason smiled thinly. That meant it was starting to feel it. The weight, the silence, the sensation of being watched by something it couldn't see. The Appalachians were older than the Coalition, older than war. They knew how to hide their teeth. He switched to thermal briefly, just enough to confirm. No signature as expected. These aliens pumped out so much heat they glowed like bonfires, but the one below had gone cold. He was masking his temperature now. Clever, but the trick had its limits. Humans had learned to track movement, displacement, timing, and the forest whispered secrets to those willing to listen. Down the slope, a twig cracked. Not near Mason, near Corporal Jennings' position. A rookie, green but promising. Mason tensed. A flash of light, a misstep. The alien fired. Mason didn't flinch as the shot echoed, sharp and surgical. But he recognized the sound. That was no warning shot. It was a kill. Jennings, he called low and sharp. Nothing. He waited 10 seconds. Still nothing. Damn it, Mason muttered. The alien hadn't just located Jennings. It had baited him. Used silence the same way humans did. That changed the math. He shifted left, inch by inch, toward a better firing position. Underneath the mossy overhang, the smell of damp earth filled his nose. The woods closed in tighter the farther one crawled, like the planet itself was curling inward to protect its own. Vorkshar, though he didn't know the sniper's name, was moving again. He was good, no, excellent. Mason had seen high-value coalition units before, but this one worked like a predator. He never backtracked, never hesitated. He adapted, and that made him dangerous. But Earth had something no data feed could prepare an alien for. It had Mason. He slowed his breathing. The rifle became part of his bones. He tracked the alien's movement as it crossed through a low ravine, every step calculated to avoid natural choke points. There was no clear line of fire. Mason didn't need one. He planted a small reflector dish in the soil beside him, angled toward a narrow creek bed 50 meters away. Another mirror, already positioned, would catch the sunlight through the trees and throw a flicker of light across the alien's path. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then the glint returned, right where it needed to. The alien froze, raising its weapon. Mason watched as it zeroed in on the decoy flash, fired once, and dropped back into cover. Perfect. The shot echoed for miles, reverberating off the hills. And then Mason saw what he'd been waiting for. A ripple, barely perceptible, in the brush. Not the alien. Something on his back. A scout drone, peeking up to recon the shot site. A tiny movement, a sliver of tech. He squeezed the trigger. The bullet punched through the underbrush, caught the drone mid-hover, and shattered it in a silent burst of sparks. No energy surge, no alert, just sudden absence. He waited. The alien didn't react. Smart, didn't take the bait. But Mason knew he'd felt it. He could feel the tension in the air, like a stretched wire ready to snap. The alien was being hunted now. Mason adjusted again. The light was changing, cloud cover thickening. That meant thermal would get trickier. Shadows lengthened. Every leaf became a mask. Every silence became a question. His earbud crackled. Multiple contacts, ridgeline. Could be advanced squad. He thought about that. The alien had likely marked this spot for reinforcement. They always try to bring in fire teams once their elite couldn't handle it alone. He clicked once. Hold position. I've got this. Vorth was moving again, but now his confidence had frayed. He scanned erratically, tracked too fast. The precision was still there, but it wavered under pressure. That was all Mason needed. An edge. The sergeant's finger hovered over the trigger. But he didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, he shifted back, crawling toward a secondary position. He would let the alien feel safe again. Let him believe he'd cleared the threat. Then, when the next squad landed and the trap fully closed, Mason would take his real shot. Because the mission wasn't just to kill the eye. It was to break him. Let him see every shadow as a threat, every rustle as the end. Let him carry that fear back to his generals. Mason slid deeper into the woods, vanishing once more. Behind him, the alien remained still, unaware that his every step forward now led straight into the heart of the nest. The night fell quickly in the Appalachians, wrapping the forest in a dense shroud of black and damp silence. Vorth Kshar sat beneath a twisted oak, back to the trunk, breathing shallowly. The mission had not gone as planned. What was meant to be a surgical extraction, locate and eliminate, had evolved into something more primal, a test of instincts. Survival. His left shoulder throbbed from the drone's sudden destruction. He hadn't heard the shot, hadn't seen the tracer. It was as if the forest itself had swatted it out of the air. Worse, the humans had stopped firing. That disturbed him. He preferred noise, activity, something to map and respond to. Silence was worse. Silence meant strategy. A faint whisper reached him, not through sound, but through sensation. The awareness of being watched had returned, stronger than before. He scanned the treetops, the hollows, the ridgelines. Nothing, not even birds. The humans didn't control this terrain. They were part of it. Vorth pulled a data spike from his utility belt and jammed it into the dirt. A second followed. They began mapping residual energy distortions, building a passive scan. Not as effective as active pulse, but safer. It gave him a sense of volume, of pressure zones, of shape. A shape approached. He turned his rifle, swept slowly, and caught movement. A figure, humanoid, crouched low and moving with confidence. Not one of the scattered scouts. This one wore heavier armor, matte and weather-worn. Vorth zoomed in. The human knelt beside one of the shattered drones, examined the wreckage, then vanished into the brush again without pause. It wasn't carelessness. It was message. He knew Vorth was watching. This was no ordinary soldier. Vorth leaned back against the oak and closed his neural eye briefly, accessing stored patterns, profiles, previous encounters. No match. Whoever this was operated outside known tags. Unregistered. Probably not part of the command hierarchy. That meant he was one of the true locals. The ones who didn't exist on coalition maps. The ones they feared. The sniper nest. It wasn't a place. It was a doctrine, and Vorth was inside it now. He opened his eye again. His fingers danced across the rifle's side, adjusting range parameters. The forest shifted subtly as the temperature dropped. Fog curled low across the floor. Vorth smiled faintly. Mist favored the patient. A flicker to his left. A rustle. He snapped his weapon up and fired once. Clean shot, dead center. But only a rabbit leapt into the air, torn mid-bound. It thudded to the ground in a heap of fur and twitching limbs. The forest stilled again. And then the bullet came. It struck the ground inches from his foot. No flash. No sound. Just sudden, immediate violence. Vorth rolled behind a boulder, cursed silently, and counted the angle. It hadn't come from the direction of the rabbit. No, this one came from above. High elevation. Opposite ridge. He tapped coordinates into his visor and overlaid the trajectory. His estimation narrowed to a single ridgeline crest, and the pattern clicked. They were triangulating him. Every movement, every reaction, every counterfire, they'd recorded it, fed it into a model. They weren't just waiting for him to fail. They were building a map of his instincts, sculpting a perimeter around his own logic, slowly tightening it. Vorth moved. He abandoned his perch, slithering across rock and root, avoiding clear lines of sight. The soil was damp, clinging to his armor. He disabled his motion enhancer, moving purely under muscle. His eye flickered. Another heat bloom, subtle, not human. A scout drone? No, it blinked out too fast. He found a hollow beneath a downed tree, wedged himself inside, rifle ready. He aimed toward the triangulated ridge, pulse steady. 20 seconds passed, then 30. His retinal display pulsed with scan data, minor displacement patterns in the foliage, sudden weight distribution changes. And then, a shimmer, not of light, but of presence. He fired. The shot tore through the night, followed by a half-scream, half-snarl. Something hit the ground. Vorth bolted from the hollow and approached slowly, scanning. A human lay prone, not dead, wounded, mid-20s, male, camo caked in mud. His side bled into the moss. Vorth kept his rifle raised. You're not the one I've been tracking. The man smiled through bloodied teeth. Doesn't matter. He blinked rapidly. Something in his cheek twitched. Vorth stepped closer. The man whispered, Too slow. The earth beneath Vorth detonated. Not a full explosion, but a concussive force. It launched him backward, armor absorbing most of the impact. His visor cracked. Systems blinked. When he regained focus, the body was gone. No trail, no signal. It hadn't been bait. It had been a test. They were testing his willingness to engage, measuring his aggression, probing how deep his instincts went before they'd trigger a mistake. Vorth rose, armor groaning, and for the first time he felt it, not anger, not confusion. Respect. These weren't rebels. They were surgeons, philosophers of war. He checked his chrono. Reinforcements were scheduled to land in 3 hours. They'd expect a clear zone. He'd failed to make one. The eye of the coalition, undone by ghosts with bolt-action rifles and bones in their blood. Still, he wasn't beaten. Not yet. He would find the nest and burn it. But as he moved deeper into the valley, every shadow seemed to grow teeth. Every silence hummed with the memory of a rifle shot. And somewhere above him, Mason whispered into his mic, "Let him come. Let him see how deep the earth goes." The storm arrived without warning. No thunder, no brilliant forks of light. Just a steady, unrelenting rain that turned the earth slick and heavy. Water ran in rivulets down moss-slick trunks and pooled in the hollows of fractured stones. The forest seemed to sigh under its weight, branches bending low, whispering in secret tongues. Vorthkshar moved through the wet veil like a shade, senses stretched to their limits. He had not slept, had not eaten. The woods had taken those needs from him. The sniper hadn't fired again since the trap. That unsettled him more than gunfire ever could. It meant the hunter had already moved, shifted, repositioned. It meant Vorth was a step behind. Always, the forest no longer obeyed the laws of the battlefield. It obeyed Mason, and now it was swallowing Vorth whole. He slowed near a natural basin, a wide depression where rock rose like broken ribs in the ground. Rainwater spilled into it, forming a shallow lake. He scanned it, expecting reflections, metal, glass, muzzle flash. None came. Instead, he found remnants, half-buried shell casings, drag marks in mud, bone fragments. Old ones, worn smooth by time and rot. He crouched and examined them with gloved fingers. Too clean, too purposeful. A warning, perhaps, or a marker. Above, Mason watched from a crow's nest, a makeshift blind suspended in the arms of an ancient pine. He hadn't moved in hours. His joints ached. His stomach growled. But his eye never left the basin. His finger rested on the trigger. This was the moment. Vorth entered the circle fully, rifle lowered. His posture was wrong. Less predator now, more pilgrim. The alien wasn't hunting anymore. He was seeking. Mason felt a twist of something, not pity but recognition. They had both come here for clarity. Both had spilled blood in pursuit of it. But only one of them understood the language of these hills. Mason adjusted the scope, aligning the reticle with Vorth's shoulder joint. A disabling shot. Crippling, not killing. A message. But something in him paused. He let his eye drift from the scope, just briefly, to blink away the rain. Vorth looked up, not randomly, directly at him. Mason's blood cooled. The alien lifted his free hand, not to aim, not to surrender, but to place it flat against his chest. A soldier sign. Across cultures, it meant the same thing. Respect, challenge, closure. Mason breathed in through his nose, then slowly exhaled. He lifted the rifle again, but Vorth was already gone, vanished from the basin as if the forest had folded over him. Movement rustled below. Mason swung right. Too late. The alien shot cracked a branch near his perch, sending splinters past his face. Not a kill, a warning, a mirror to Mason's restraint. Their war had become a dialogue, one bullet at a time. Mason dropped from the tree, rolling into the underbrush. His team crackled to life in his earpiece. Reinforcements incoming. Dropship pattern says heavy armor. ETA 10 minutes. He tapped once in reply. Already moving. The last stand wouldn't happen in the basin. Not in the open. He needed terrain, verticality, and confusion. He needed the nest. The location wasn't placed on any map. Even the local militia didn't know the true coordinates. Only Mason and the 3 oldest veterans still living in these hills could find it blindfolded. It wasn't just defensible, it was mythic. A place where the bones of old wars slept, where whispered names and fading dog tags lay like offerings. He arrived first. Rain made the approach slower. Roots snagged his boots. But the clearing came into view at last. A steep-walled valley choked with ferns, fog pooling like milk. Stone spires rose like fingers, natural cover for a dozen snipers. But only one waited there now. Vorth came 10 minutes later. He didn't sneak. He walked, unarmed, his rifle slung across his back, its stock wrapped in soak cloth. He stopped 10 feet from the center. Mason stepped into view, weapon raised but not aimed. The wind shifted. A crow called once from above. Neither moved. "You made it," Mason said, voice hoarse. "I had to," Vorth replied. "You left a trail. Not of signs. Of intent." Mason let out a dry breath. Not many coalition officers bother reading human intent. Vorth's gaze narrowed. "You're not a standard human. And you're not a standard alien." For a moment, the rain softened. Vorth reached up, slowly, unhooked the data core from his belt, and held it out. "I record everything. Movement patterns, response times, psychology models. I want you to take this." Mason stared at it, silent. Vorth's tone stayed even. "You're not just a sniper. You're a defense protocol made of blood and memory. If the Coalition ever lands full force here, they need to understand what they're up against." Mason stepped forward, took the device. Didn't thank him. He said, "You'll leave? I will report failure, and I will advocate withdrawal." Mason nodded once. "Then get out of these woods. While they still let you." Vorth turned, walked into the rain. This time, Mason didn't track him. No scopes, no mirrors, just memory. The forest closed behind him, quiet once more. And in the stillness of the sniper nest, Mason crouched, tucking the data core into a small, rusted ammo tin already full of dog tags, letters, and hollow point rounds. Another story, another warning. Because Earth didn't win by overwhelming force. It won by being unforgettable.